Have you any idea why I may have stopped you?
No.
You're not wearing your seatbelt.
Just took it off.
Right, do you want to come and have a seat in the back of the car? So we've got a video in the car and I can clearly show that you weren't wearing it.
Gary, how much have you had to drink?
4 beers earlier on.
Do you know why I've stopped you?
The legal limit's 35, you've blown 124. All right?
Please don't breathalyse me. I'm going to lose my career.
So you're going to be arrested for drink driving.
Getting pulled over by the police can be stressful, but it's important to know why it happens and what to do when it does.
It doesn't need to be stressful, and in this video we're going to go through a few of the reasons why you might get stopped and what to do if it happens.
Hi mate, you alright?
Good afternoon, thank you for stopping. Just to let you know, this records audio and visual. Okay, records all the time, we film every interaction. From speeding to car modifications, we're going to cover absolutely everything in this video. Stick around to the end for some really cool bonus information. Now, before we go into the reasons why you may get stopped, I think it's really important for you to understand why we do what we do as roads policing. Now, obviously, we police the roads, and that could be anything from denying criminals the use of the road to all too often dealing with collisions and the death and destruction that my colleagues and I see on a regular basis. Now, because we see that, and it's things that you won't see, we are really passionate about stopping it because the impact on people and families is so huge. Now, George, you have been out with us and you've seen some of the things that we deal with. How has that changed your perception of what we do from where you were before to now?
I think, like most car guys at the start, I just did what my friends did and I learned vicariously through what I saw on social media. But now, honestly, I feel like I've just seen it through a different light. And as you may know, and the viewers also, I've unfortunately lost a few friends to dangerous driving and drinking drugs and various other things. And seeing it this new way through ultimately the lens of Owen MPS Messenger, I feel very blessed. But at the same time, I'm really grateful that we can show the audience that too.
Now, sometimes we may come across as being a little bit ruthless, maybe when we deal with people at the side of the road, but there is a very good reason for that. And the reason is that if we stop you and we see something like a dangerous modification on your bike or on your car, and we let you go with it in the condition that it's in, and then you have a crash, we're the ones that are going to end up in court, and the court are going to say, well, hang on a minute, you had the opportunity to stop that happening, why did you not do that? So no police officer is going to let you go knowing that your vehicle is in dangerous condition and it could be them that ends up in court.
Speed has never killed anyone. Suddenly becoming stationary, that's what gets you.
Now, that was a famous quote by Jeremy Clarkson. So, Owen, on that point, why is speeding so frowned upon from the police officer's perspective?
Well, he's not completely wrong. You know, it is becoming stationary very, very quickly that is going to kill you. And the faster you are going, the higher the level of impact and the higher the level of injury. And that's why we have speed limits. You know, and people say about increasing the speed limits on the motorway, well, that's probably never going to happen. If anything, they're probably likely to come down because of the environmental factors of going faster, and you can see that around areas like Cardiff. The reason that we now have 20s instead of 30s is because if you hit somebody at 30 mile an hour, the likelihood of them surviving is lower than it is if you hit them at 20 mile an hour, and we see a lot less serious injury or death at 20 mile an hour than we do at 30 mile an hour, and that's the main reason for it. Now, as you can see here, we're stood in front of probably the most well-loved vehicles in the UK. Now, for us, when we're out in the cars, you know, we're human and we will deal with things on a human basis, but with the camera vans, it's a camera and the thresholds are set within that, and if you get caught by that, then it's just dealt with by the technology.
Now, on the talk of thresholds, let's talk about speeding in the sense that what is too fast and what is too slow. Is there a version of that? And also, how fast would you have to be going to get pulled over versus that of a police officer just being fine with the way you were driving?
Well, you've got the limit, so it's a limit, it's not a target, so you've got that to start with, but then there's also driving at an appropriate speed for the conditions. So, you know, if it's pouring with rain, there's a lot of surface water, then maybe the speed limit isn't that appropriate speed, and you need to think about it and drive a little bit slower. But yeah, for us out in the cars, then like I say, we deal with things on a bit of a human basis rather than the technology that goes into the vans.
Now, just quickly, before we move on to the next point, how fast do you have to go to lose your license? Because I think a lot of people get confused on that. Now, today's video is very luckily sponsored by Carly, and they make OBD readers that plug into your car and they actually help you diagnose some issues. Now, we've all been to service garages before where they can charge you loads and loads of money to simply press a button and eliminate those problems, but we can actually do that from the comfort of our own home and also take it with us on trips if anything were to go wrong. Now, I have actually plugged the OBD reader into my friend Will's Audi from 2014, and needless to say, it's pulled up a few issues. But don't worry, that's exactly what this OBD reader is for, and if I click clear issues, we can now see on the screen that it's going to go through the car and potentially fix loads of those problems. Now, it's worth bearing in mind that when it comes to an OBD reader, sometimes there are actually problems that have arisen in the past that have left current fault codes on the car. So we're going to clear those first, and then when we do a fresh scan, we can actually find out what's currently wrong with the car rather than addressing those previous codes that have been stored from old issues. Now, just quickly, while Will has jumped out to actually talk to his neighbour, I found in the coding section that we can actually put the alert on, so if he doesn't have his seatbelt on, the car's going to beep at him. Clearly the previous owner has turned this off, but of course I'm all about road safety. So now if Will forgets to put his seatbelt on, it's going to be telling him off. Now, Will, I must admit, while you've been talking to your neighbour, I've actually coded 2 things into your Audi without your permission, so I'm hoping you're okay with it. Yep. I've not only turned off engine start-stop, which I know is really, really annoying to anyone that has it, but I've also now activated the chime when you forget to put your seatbelt on. And you know that here on GCM, we're all about road safety, so I'm really glad I've done that. But guys, these Carly OBD readers don't just do coding and diagnostics. They also do used car checks, repair guides, engine live data, intelligent predictions, service and maintenance, battery, customization, used car mileage checks, and more. It's a really, really good bit of kit to have. But if you wanted to get one for yourself, you can use code GCM 2024 by clicking on the link in the description section below, and I highly recommend you get one for yourself. Keep it in your glove box and you'll know that you're covered, especially if you don't know that much about cars. This will help you in more ways than one. How fast do you have to go to lose your license? Because I think a lot of people get confused on that. What are the rules?
There are various thresholds set into it. So for, let's say, the 70-mile-an-hour limits on the motorway, you will get to a certain speed that will be a threshold, and up to that you go on possibly a driver awareness course, or you might, if you've already done one of those, then it'd be the 3 points and the fine. And then there's another threshold beyond that where maybe the driver awareness course, you're not suitable for that because you're over that threshold, and then there's another threshold again that would put you straight to court.
So over 100 mile an hour, if I'm not mistaken, I'm sure they're probably wondering, is it an instant ban over 100 mile an hour?
You will go to court. So in order to avoid getting a ticket for speeding, just be aware of the speed limits that you're driving through. You know, pay attention all the time, use cruise control maybe if you're on the motorway, but just be careful when you're using that and don't leave things till the last minute. But it's just about being aware when you're driving and driving at a speed that is A, under the limit, and B, appropriate for the conditions. We get a lot of comments about police cars speeding to McDonald's and late for their tea and all that kind of stuff, which couldn't be further from the truth really, because all of this equipment in the car and the individual driver records record literally everything we do. We do have an exemption for speed, so obviously we can break speed limits, but there needs to be a policing purpose for doing that, and if there isn't a policing purpose and we go through a speed camera, then we will receive the notice of intended prosecution the same as anybody else would.
Speed has never killed anyone.
So whilst what Jeremy Clarkson said about stopping suddenly is what kills you, you've also got to remember that the faster you travel, the less time you've got to react to what's going on in front of you. So at 70 mile an hour, you're travelling at 105 feet per second, which in new money is around 30 metres per second. If you think about 90 mile an hour, then you're travelling at 145 feet per second. So, you know, that extra distance that you're travelling per second can have a massive influence on whether you hit that car in front or not, because the difference between 70 and 90 in what you're travelling per second is about the length of a tennis court. And if you think it takes you 1 second maybe to react to what's going on ahead of you and put your foot on the brake, you've already travelled that distance or that extra length of a tennis court before you've even put your foot on the brake.
And I've crushed.
Yeah,
I'm fine. I'm not drunk or anything.
I've had a drink, but not too much. I've
Not
had a
too
few
much.
pints.
Right.
Couple of pints.
Couple of pints. I'll do a breath test on you.
Yeah.
You hit a road sign?
No, that's not. No, I haven't.
You have. You see, you're on top of a road sign.
What? Oh, sorry.
Because you've committed a moving traffic offence, we've got the power to require a specimen of breath. I have to warn you that should you fail or refuse to give me that specimen of breath, then you would be liable to arrest. Obviously, you're liable to arrest if you fail the test. Have you had an alcoholic drink or used any mouthwash in the last 20 minutes?
No.
Have you smoked within the last 2 minutes?
No.
Okay, what you need to do is just take a deep breath and then it's a long, hard blow into the machine until I tell you to stop. It's just like blowing up a balloon. When you're ready, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, and stop. You just take the tube, pull it towards you. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to hold it there.
Yep.
And that bit there, just wipe it a couple of times on the inside of each cheek and then down your tongue.
Cool.
All right. Put it back on the thing. Clip it in. Press that. We're done. If you've committed a moving traffic offence, we have any suspicion of alcohol or drug use, or you've been involved in a collision, then we have the power to require a specimen of breath from you. If you do fail the roadside breath test or the drug swipe, then we go back to custody. So let's have a look what happens next. Now, if we get to this point where you've gone through the intox procedure and now you're being put into a cell, your life is going to change dramatically.
Now, obviously, there's a lot of things to bear in mind, because if I do go in here after making the stupid decision of drink driving, not only am I going to lose my license, but potentially have my job affected, my relationship with my partner, my ability to see my friends, and quite a lot of other things in day-to-day life that are going to be affected from not having my car. So all in all, it's just not worth it. So it turns out there are actually a few car modifications that until I'd met Owen, I didn't actually know were illegal. For example, I fitted some upgraded wheels from the Mark II Focus RS to my Focus ST, and it turns out I fitted them incorrectly and the tyres started to wear. It's strange, it's just here, running all the way around. Yeah, so odd. So odd indeed, especially as it doesn't go round the rest of the tyre. Which of course got me in some trouble with you when you've made me change it all. Also a decap pipe, which I used to have. Turns out that not only voids your MOT, also your insurance. And the worst thing of all is listening to people on Facebook, because it turns out if you'd listen to them, cutting springs is a good idea. And let me just premise, it is not a good idea.
A cut spring for us would be a prohibition on the car. So if we find cut springs on the car, we will prohibit it.
So in summary, Owen, car modifications, people need to take it seriously. And what is the best bit of advice you've got to anyone wondering how to do it correctly?
Probably watch our videos.
Yeah, exactly that.
It's a really, really complicated world, and you know the construction and use legislation is different sometimes to what is seen in the MOT, and things are viewed differently. So it can get really confusing. So yeah, watch our videos, and hopefully we explain some of that. But we could spend the rest of the video talking about mods, but let's move on.
Let's move on to the next one.
Emergency.
Multiple requests for police fire.
Get back! A truck is ran into a load of stationary vehicles.
And it just didn't stop.
There is 2 lorries, 4 cars.
Smashed up to pieces and it's on fire.
Jesus Christ.
Obviously he had the knowledge at that time that it was because he was on his mobile phone that kind of crash had happened, and how that would have played on his mind I wouldn't know, but I wouldn't imagine that he would be comfortable in that knowledge.
Have you got your mobile phone with you at the moment? Could I take that from you, please?
Now, when it comes to distraction offences within the vehicle, you've got 2 main ones. You've got use a handheld mobile phone, and then you've got not being in proper control of the vehicle. Now, using a handheld mobile phone offence is what it is. It's using a handheld mobile phone whilst you're driving. So the best thing to do is have it in a holder, or if you don't really need it, just put it away where it's out of sight, because getting caught using that is 6 points. And if you're within your first 2 years of driving, 6 points, you're back to the beginning. If you're not within your first 2 years, then 6 points is a lot of points to get on your licence, and it's going to increase your insurance because you're more of a risk to the insurance company. What you can see in here with our equipment is we've got our controls here for the lights. and everything. Obviously we need to use that if we're responding to incidents or we need to stop somebody, and it's quite easy just to press the 999 button there. Then we've got the main clear tone system here, and when we log into it there are two options that you get. One is for single crewed and one is for double crewed. Now if I'm single crewed in the car, I click single crewed and then it complies with all the legislation, and it massively restricts what can be accessed on the system while the car is moving. When the car is stationary, then it opens up the system and we can do the other checks that we wouldn't be able to do normally if the car's moving and I'm single crewed. And obviously this is the speed detection, and that's just a matter of pressing a button. When it comes to using the radio systems, we've got the hands-free thing here that we can use, so we don't have to use our personal set which is on our vest. Now when we're looking at not being in proper control of the vehicle, it could be literally anything within the vehicle. And modern vehicles using the tablet system, sometimes they're quite complicated to access the menus, so be really careful on what you're trying to do within the vehicle. Similarly, if you're eating or drinking, you know, we see that quite a lot, and we see people putting on makeup and things when they're driving. That is not in proper control of the vehicle, so you need to be really careful about that.
Now, when it comes to using your mobile phone legally, there's a few things that you can actually get away with. For example, watch this. Hey Siri, call William Carver. And as you'll see, my phone will use Siri to call the person that I wanted to talk to. And the advantage of that is that I didn't actually need to touch my phone to call my friend. So this is a really good way to use your phone legally and ensure that you don't get into trouble. A couple of years ago, I was pulled over by a police officer in Exeter. Now, Owen, this is a really interesting one because at the time I was driving my Nissan 350Z and I was simply avoiding potholes. So from your perspective, what caused the police officer to want to pull me over?
I think probably one of the most common reasons that we pull people over is for their manner of driving, which would have been what they pulled you over for. You know, from our point of view, if we're following you and you're going like this in the road, we're not thinking, oh, is he avoiding potholes? We're thinking, has he been drinking?
Looks suspicious, yeah.
Yeah, has he been using some kind of controlled substance that probably he shouldn't be using?
Absolutely.
So we're going to stop you to just bottom that out, really.
Quite an interesting topic, to be fair, because I think a lot of people would have been pulled over falsely for that exact reason, you know, potholes or maybe avoiding something on the road. But I can completely understand from your perspective why you might think that. It's quite a good lead into some of the things that people shouldn't be taking before they go driving. So what do you have to say on that topic?
Again, that's, you know, for us, that's a massive part of what we do, because 20% of fatals are still related to alcohol use. Which is a massive percentage of the fatals that we see on the road. So if we suspect somebody's manner of driving, you know, maybe you haven't indicated coming off of a roundabout, or, you know, it could be something that's quite subtle, or it could be something that's, you know, less subtle, like your harsh acceleration and braking. That kind of stuff, we are going to stop you to find out the reasons for that manner of driving.
It's so interesting how clued up you guys are, and I think from the public's perspective, we don't often give you guys credit for thinking and considering all of those options. So it's really interesting to know from your perspective on that exact point. But I can imagine there's probably a lot of people that have unfortunately got into an accident, and as a result, you've then done some testing and you found out they had something in their system which could have led to that accident actually happening.
You've said accident twice there, but think about it, is it an accident? Because that person has been drinking and driving, they've then caused a collision. Is that collision an accident? I would suggest it's not. By the way, there's a common misconception, whilst I think of it, that you have to have committed an offence for us to pull you over. Now that's not true, because what the Road Traffic Act says is that we can stop any vehicle on a road, and we can do that in order to find out who's driving the vehicle and whether they're legally entitled to drive it. So we can ask you to produce your driving licence, your insurance and your MOT by the roadside, and if you fail to do that, then technically you are committing an offence. So you can be stopped at any time to check those documents and for us to make sure that you're legally entitled to drive that car. Now, if you've got things like maybe chameleon tint where we can't see into the car, then yes, maybe that might be the reason why we stop you, because like I say, we need to make sure that the person who's driving that car is the person that's legally entitled to do it. And if we can't see into the car, then sometimes we're thinking, okay, why can't we see into it? What is there to hide?
Now Owen, sometimes I see organised stop checks on the road, so I'm really curious from your perspective, why is it the police choose to do that?
Yeah, so sometimes, like we've got coming up, we do operations around things like tyres. So we work with National Tyre Safe, and we will set up a stop site where we bring people in and we can check the documents and that to make sure they're the person that's entitled to drive the car and that's all in order, but also to do simple things like tyre checks. And its engagement, education, and sometimes enforcement as well.
Absolutely. Now, on that point, is there anything that the member of the public would need to have in their car to make sure that you get the documents you need? Because I'm assuming you're going to say you're going to have licence and registration and various other things.
So most of the documents that we need are available to us through our own systems. But what I would advise a member of the public to do is just make sure they have access to things like the insurance app, or to be able to log on to their account online so that they can show us the live document if we need to see that. What I can't take is like a screenshot or an old email, because what people will sometimes do is take out the insurance policy and then cancel it the next day. But they'll carry that screenshot with them. So we want to be able to see the live policy.
So Owen, from your perspective, how do we pull over correctly when you put your blues and twos on?
Well, firstly, please don't panic. You know, when the blues go on behind you, don't panic and just do something silly. Normally we'll be looking ahead to see where there's a safe place for you to stop. So all we're asking you to do is find somewhere where you can stop safely. If we're putting you over on something like a dual carriageway, then generally we'll be looking for the parking lay-by. So if you see that coming up, just pull into the parking lay-by. Please do not stop in the live lane of the dual carriageway, because that's really, really dangerous. Just have a little think and think, where's the safest place for me to stop?
Now, since I've met you, you've actually taught me and educated me, so to speak, on a phrase called Batari's box. So would you like to help explain to the viewers what that means? Because it's actually really interesting.
Yeah, so Batari box basically talks about how attitudes can affect behaviour, and it's your attitude affects your behaviour, which affects my attitude, which affects my behaviour, and it goes round and round in that circle. And what it's kind of saying is how you are with me affects how I am with you. And sometimes we can stop people, and it's, you know, it's a really nice interaction. We have a little conversation, maybe a bit of education from us, and maybe sometimes it's...
Some people obviously kick off and get a bit angry with you, and as a result you treat them accordingly.
Well, it's just about, you know, having that civil conversation with somebody makes it a lot easier to deal with that situation than if somebody's like really angry from the start. And you know, there's a reason why we've pulled you over, and it could be a very, very brief 30-second conversation, or it could take a lot longer, and that depends a lot about how that conversation goes. Now, before we go into the bonus Instagram questions section, I think it's really, really important that I just give you a bit of advice about being stopped if you're maybe on your own and you feel a little bit vulnerable or something like that. Now, behind me you'll see a marked car. It's pretty obvious that it's a marked police car, but of course sometimes we use unmarked cars as well. Now, if you don't feel comfortable with where the police officer is trying to pull you over, or you suspect that it might not be a genuine police car, then there are various options open to you. What I'd always suggest is that you acknowledge that you've seen the police car, because what we don't want to be doing is getting into maybe a pursuit situation because we think somebody's making off from us. So just acknowledge that you've seen the police car and that you've noted that they want you to stop. If you don't feel comfortable that it's a genuine police car, then you can phone 999 and you can ask them, I'm being pulled over, I'm on this road, can you just contact the unit that's following me and requesting the stop so that I know it's a genuine police car? And our comms will then get in touch with that officer and just clarify that they are genuine and that they are requesting that stop from you. Also, if you're not in a place where you feel comfortable with, if it's out and it's dark, then you can go to somewhere where you are more comfortable stopping. So pulling into a petrol station or a well-lit area. But again, just show the police car that you've seen them so that we don't get into any pursuit situation.
Owen, I have some questions for you here, and we're going to catch your responses impromptu. Stupid questions get stupid answers, and so on. So someone actually said the first thing that they actually get is panic and anxiety. I'm deaf, and when an officer won't look at you to talk, it's hard to lip read. And then if they ask me why you're drunk, because how I really talk, it doesn't lead for a calming response, because clearly I'm not drunk.
I think for him, it's about making the officer aware that he is deaf, because obviously we don't know that when we stop the vehicle. And once we know that, then we can make allowances for that, and we can deal with that.
Now, a question coming in from Nick's Vids. I hope he or she treats me and my friends with respect, because if you do, you'll get exactly the same back from me.
And that's exactly what we were talking about with the Batari box. You know, we can have a very, very pleasant interaction, or it can go the other way. But for me, I'm always, you know, very polite with people unless they give me a reason, you know, to be otherwise. And you've known me long enough, and you've seen me deal with numerous people by the side of the road.
Respectful,
you know, and I will always treat them with the respect that anyone deserves.
The thing is, you have a sense of humour, so I think that sort of humanises you to the public as well. And obviously, they get to watch the video, so they see a different side to you. But I really think it matters so much more than a lot of people give it credit for.
Do you know what? Sometimes everyone has a bad day as well, and you know, you don't know what somebody's dealing with, and you don't know what they've been to or seen that day.
I agree.
And you know, sometimes people may well have a bad interaction with another person, and you know, for us, we might have come from something that's really quite horrible.
No, of course.
And then all of a sudden we're dealing with you, and you know, it's sometimes okay. It's difficult to switch off, and yeah, it's a difficult world, our world, unless you live in it.
No, I agree, and I've seen a very, very small insight of that myself, but you know, I've been there around you where there are things that you've dealt with and you're just so stressed and just, to me, mentally shut off, and it's a shame to see you like that, but it is part of the job.
It is part of the job, and you know,
we
we don't look for sympathy, because we join knowing what we're going to deal with, and we deal with what we deal with, and unfortunately sometimes it does stay with you. And you know, if you've been to a job where somebody's just died because they didn't put their seatbelt on, and then an hour later you're dealing by the side of the road with somebody who hasn't got their seatbelt on, you're just thinking, look, please just put the seatbelt on, because I've just come from that. Nobody thinks it's going to happen to them, but it happened to that person an hour ago. But they left home thinking they'd be home for tea. Now we're going to knock on the door to tell their family that they're not coming home because they didn't put their seatbelt on. You know, and now I'm dealing with you not wearing a seatbelt. Do you see what I mean? It's, you know, unless you look at it from inside our world, it's very difficult to picture what's going on.
But we've had a question come in from Robert Beard. Now, he says he would have instant panic, but he does want to know, do I still address them now as sir or ma'am, or is that offensive now?
I don't find it offensive. I've been called a lot worse.
Yeah?
I don't think, as long as people are respectful, then I don't think it really matters, does it? But, you know, in response to that, there is no reason to panic. You know, we're stopping you for a reason, and, you know, there's no reason to panic for that. Just like we've said earlier in the video, just find that safe place to stop.
Now, the last one comes in from SFT Photography, and he said, look, I'll be honest, the last time I was pulled, I was doing 140 mile an hour. So my first thoughts were, oh, that's not good.
Yes, I can understand why he might panic.
Surprised he's driving. If he's caught doing 140, to be fair, he should have had a large ban for that.
Well, he probably did get banned. I would have thought. I would be very surprised if he didn't get banned for that. But it's, you know, you work hard to get your driving licence, and when you've got it, you then start relying on it, and you're reliant for it for going to work. You know, for some people, it is their work, and if you lose that driving licence, then how are you going to work? How are you going to pay the bills? And you know, at the end of the day, for us, we need to enforce all the rules for everybody. We can't have one set of rules for one person and one set of rules for somebody else. It's got to be one set of rules that cover everything. But unfortunately, there are people that think that they don't have to abide by those rules, but they do, and that's to keep everybody safe. You know, you're driving a 1.5 ton killing machine, and you know, it's dangerous, and we see it when it goes wrong, and we see it way too often, and it's always because somebody has thought that they didn't have to abide by the rules. It's very rare that we get something that is a true accident that couldn't have been prevented. Generally, it could have been prevented just by people sticking to the rules. You know, even, you know, the simple things like we preach around the fatal five. You know, drink and drug driving, speed. careless driving, seatbelts and mobile phones, the 5 main reasons why people are killed or seriously injured on the road. And we see it day in, day out. And, you know, you do. You know, everyone does. You'll drive home to you'll see at least one of those.
Now, being pulled over doesn't need to be that stressful. Hopefully by watching this video, you're not only a better driver now, but you're also a more prepared one.
So if you follow the rules and make sure that your car is nice and legal, it will massively lower your chances of getting stopped.
Now, on that note, don't forget to click like on this video if you've enjoyed it. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. And of course, they need to subscribe as well, don't they?
Absolutely.
Now, before you go, YouTube seems to think that you're going to like this video, but if you click on this one, hopefully you enjoy that too.